to another TerranScapes video. I decided that I would try another format, another place here, just so that I could have a table in front of me so I could actually put some stuff out, as I wanted to talk about a variety of pieces today, and maybe this is a little bit more informal. So hopefully it works. If it doesn't, you know, keep changing it. I'm always going to be looking for a better way to present the materials, but I thought we'd try this out for today. So first, a piece that I've done before, but is it's one I haven't shown in quite a while, and it highlights some of the things I've noticed about the work I've been doing lately. So first, just to show you the piece. So this is the Jungle Pyramid. It's a sort of a ziggurat based on South American form, and one of the things that I noticed, I actually went back and took a look at the pictures that I had posted on the website after I had finished this, and I realized this has a boatload more vegetation around it than when I had first done it. And at first I thought maybe it's almost a little bit too much, but I really wanted it to feel like it's set in a jungle terrain. And then I realized that actually this is partly why you know, maybe some projects are going out a little longer. Is every time I do a project again, I'm adding little bits more to it, and that's taking a little bit more time. So there's likely going to be maybe a few price adjustments on some of the bigger pieces to reflect some of the extra time that I'm doing, and I'll try to post videos or pictures of the new pieces to reflect what the current quality is going to be. One of the things that I did on this one that's new, and again, I don't know if it's going to show in this lighting, although I've been pretty pleased with how things have been coming out on the camera, is that I used the airbrush, and I went in and I sort of added a little gradation at the base of each, just to darken it just a little bit at the bottom of each tier, and then added in some, you know, some greens and some browns to kind of dress up the surface and give it a little bit more. Let's see if I tip this. Here we go. That's probably a little bit better. Of course, there's a lot of shadows here. I'm working with a few less lights today just to see how that works. But just to give it a little bit more visual depth to it. And I actually was trying to paint it with the airbrush to paint the entire surface, and I realized nothing can really replace dry brushing for picking out the texture. And even though this is, you know, foam board, which is a relatively smooth surface, it actually still has quite a bit of texture in it, and it really gives it just a little bit of a stony look on the surfaces. So I decided that you know, there's going to be some things that the airbrush is going to work really well for, you know, putting in some coloring, and then, you know, some shading. You can see it really here. You know, I added just a little bit of black at the bottom. It just really sets that height off, really dramatizes it a little bit more, gives it a lot more visual interest. So there's a new look at an old piece I haven't shown in quite a while. I also have several new releases that I wanted to put out on the site, and I've been struggling to get new things out. So I'm going to put the video up, and then probably Wednesday of this week I'm going to try and shoot the pictures for it and get them up on the website by around the end of the week. So when you see this video, they may not be on the site, but they are going to be coming hopefully no later than the weekend. But I figure I'd try to break it up throughout the week rather than try to make a whole day of computer work, which is sometimes a little overtaxing. So the first is a new series, I should say, a new pair of buildings, building being a loose term here. This is a new crypt entrance, and I wanted something that was going to be a modified hill. So this is 2 tiers. This is 1.5 for the bottom tier and a 1-inch tall second tier here. And it's quite large. This is probably 12 inches wide, I'd say. And then I've cobbled together a whole variety of Hirst Arts molds to make the fronts of these. So many of these are the Gothic pieces, including the benches here come off of one of the Gothic sets, and the doorway, and then a few other pieces for some dress work, some other pieces for some of the sides, some other molds for the backing behind the benches. Actually, the one behind the benches here is actually a stone styrene sheeting. I'll show you another one in just a second. But and I also wanted to try some improved techniques for painting this and for some new vines. So what I've done is I've added some new vine work to this. Boy, that lighting is pretty stark. I've added some new vines to this to give it a overgrown mausoleum type feel. And then I've used a series of washes, although in the future I may be doing this with the airbrush, to give it some green overlays and some black overlays to just wash and mute those stone colors and really bring it down to something that looks like it's really been aged through time and has, you know, had a lot of rains on it in a very damp location. So I was really pleased with how these came out. These are actually part of the pieces that I did for TempleCon, and I haven't had a chance to get them up on the site yet. So I did this as a pair, thinking, you know, that you could do it as a themed table. And so here's the second mausoleum entrance. Let me move this one to the side. I'm gonna call these crypt entrances, because really I think of this as going into some kind of a subterranean area. But you can see if I hold it still enough so it'll focus, make sure it's okay. But you can see behind the statues in the archways, you know, there's a couple different blocks being used to give it a little bit of a dressed up look there. And again, some different molds are being used to incorporate different kinds of side abutments, different kinds of top caps. And then on this piece, I actually decided to extend the crown back a little bit to give it a sense that there's you know, more of an internal structure inside the hill. That's really what it's supposed to kind of give us a feel for, yet still retain that playability where you can put a large block of troops up on top of this and you're not going to really be sacrificing a lot of space on the table for something that just looks good but isn't really playable. These are based on hardboard. This is 1/8" hardboard. So that combined with the plaster front, these are all plaster cast in the tough stone, which is really a gypsum cement. That gives it quite a bit of weight, actually. Friends have been coming over and seeing the work on the table, waiting to get photographed, have been commenting on how surprising it is when they pick them up, that they do have so much heft. So it feels like something substantial that you're putting on the table. So the two new crypt entrances. Oh, and I should maybe tip it. Oh, wait a minute. Well, that's bad lighting. All right, I'm going to need to get some more lights in here for the next video. But you can see I put in a little, you know, stepping area here, and instead of the, I didn't recess these quite as far. This is like off the tomb mold, but that way, you know, I could still sit in some figurines rather than the benches. You know, one of the other things I wanted to mention is, of course, I've been adding a lot of molds to the site, and when you look at the site, you know, hopefully, even if you're not interested in purchasing this piece, you see that with a combination of a series of molds, with just a few casts from each mold, really, you are able to assemble some pretty unique structures based on whatever look you're trying to achieve. So it's something to consider that, you know, 20 casts of a single mold provide you some options, but maybe 15 casts from 2 molds provide you with many more options for different kinds of building layouts. Let's see. The other thing that I wanted to put up on the site that I've been meaning to for a little while, actually I should just say that's a standard issue for all of these pieces, are some new Fieldstone walls. Now, the old Fieldstone walls that I did were 1/2" high blocks, and they were square across. They had little connector pieces that would connect to them, and they were based. And I decided that since I got the ruined Fieldstone molds, again another Hirst Arts mold, that I wanted to create walls that were quite a bit more visually interesting than just the flat block, which looks brand new and kind of a little bit, I always felt it was a little bit out of place on a battlefield. Just looks a little too perfect. So what I did is I originally created 4 walls, and each of the walls 6 inches long, and then I raised them up just a little bit more. So this is a 3/4" inch high piece, it's 1/2 inch wide. And I started adding in some sections where blocks had fallen out, you know, rocks had fallen to the side, who knows why. And then actually glued those to the side. Let's see here, there we go. And glued those to the side. So then when you set it down, some of those missing rocks that are on the side there would fall out and, you know, are represented on the side as having not gotten too far away from the wall, but are still present. So I did 4 of those, a couple different ways. This one, a slightly larger gap in it. Again, you can see the rocks on the side there. These are all molded as one piece now, one piece cast, so those are pretty strong on there, but it is a thin plaster section, so you wouldn't want to strike that on a table too hard, but I really wanted to leave these unbased as it sort of helps to keep their costs overall down. And then I made 2 more walls, and I made them with relatively thin sections, and what I discovered is that because they were so thin, one block, one sort of, they're really, but maybe 1/4 inch thick at this union here, that they were a little bit fragile. And so what I've decided to do is I'm going to artificially separate these each time I cast them. If they don't separate on the demolding, I'm just going to pop them out myself. And then that way I can make sure that I paint the insides of them so that they look finished all the time. You can still put them on the tabletop together as they would originally been intended, but you can also then, with them being separate, have a lot more flexibility in how you want to connect your pieces to be able to construct walls of varying shapes, varying lengths, and most of these edges are going to match up really well with some of the other edges that are against, some of the other corners of the walls. It's not always going to be a perfect fit, but it's going to look pretty realistic on the battlefield, and it's going to give you just a whole bunch more flexibility for how these go together. So really, even though this is 4 walls in the set, there's actually going to be 6 pieces. So 2 of the pieces will be 6 inches in length, and then the other 4 pieces will be portions thereof, because those sections have been separated and then painted on the inside. So I'll just give you a little sense of what those are going to look like. This is really going to show up better, I think, on the website once I get photos up of these. But just to give you that sense that it is a lot of variation, a lot of little ups and downs, places where models can fire through maybe, or you can get variations in cover saves depending on where the model is, depending on your game system. Something that's going to be a lot more versatile on the table than the original wall set that I had. Of course, these are going to be offered unfinished as well, meaning that they're just the raw casts. So they're going to be, just the bare tough stone, and then you can paint them up yourself. That's just a little bit more of an inexpensive way to get them. And now that I can fit this, I got a new vacuum chamber. It's a little bit bigger, so now I can fit these in the vacuum chamber. So I'm getting pretty much 100% bubble-free casts out of these. Time to time, my vacuum chamber is giving me a little bit of trouble because it's sort of a cobbled together version that I bought off of a guy on eBay. It's pretty quality in strength and overall structure, but keeping all of the air gaps that cause leaks in it is the big challenge, and there's a couple spots on it that leak just a little bit from time to time, so I'm still working on getting that down. But the last piece that I wanted to show you are the new forests, and the new forest is really just a modification of an older piece that I put out. You may recognize these trees. This is the conifers in the style 2. I'm not very creative in the names, but just to say that it was different than the first conifers that I put out. And in these trees, what I've done is I've decided to add in some really nice trunks. And I saw this, I was inspired by a picture I saw on a Games Workshop. I don't know whether it was on their website or maybe in White Dwarf. It was a little while ago that I saw it, but I saw that they had shown some conifers in the background that had some tree trunks. And I was inspired by that because it really added a lot of realism to the pieces. I mean, we don't normally just see conifers sitting flat on the ground, especially when they're in a tight grove. If you ever have walked in a pine forest, and many of you maybe not, depending on where you live in the world. But as the amount of light at the forest level decreases because of the top canopy, then you have dying off of the lower branches. So you have a lot of exposed trunks at the bottom with a very dense canopy at the top. And I thought, really, I should have some trees that kind of reflect that. I think it would add a little bit more, and a little more visual interest to it, and also add a little bit of variability for line of sight issues, so that if you were playing a true line of sight game, you could have a few of the stands where the conifers are the short ones, flush to the ground, which are very good at blocking line of sight, and then you could intersperse a few of these, maybe get 4 of each, put them together into one large forest, and in some places you might be able to draw a line of sight for a shot, and in some places you might not. Again, looking for something that looks better, durable, and improves overall flexibility for the game. These are, oh, I forget, I think these are oak dowels. They might be basswood. And then what I've done is I've textured the trunks. I have stained them and given them a wash that helps to really pick out some of that bark detail. Let's see if I can get that in that light. Oh, I think you can see that there. And then I've drilled holes in the top of them and then glued in the tops of the trees. And so these are pretty sturdy. I took these to TempleCon as well. They got a full day's use there with a bunch of flares, and they came back pretty much unscathed except one top that was just a little loose in there, and that was because I hadn't drilled it really deep enough and put in a firm enough anchor. So I'm going to be working to make sure that all the future ones have at least a good 1/4 inch pinning in the top so that they're going to remain stable over time. Again, these are, if you're new to TerranScapes trees, these are on a plaster base. and that way the trees are very stable, so no matter how the table gets hit, your trees aren't going to fall over. One of the pet peeves I have when I play on some gaming surfaces. And so this way you can arrange them as clumps, looks realistic, stable, and pretty durable as well. And it gives me a chance to add some foliage around the bases to kind of dress it up and give it a little bit more of a forest feel. So those are the new things that will be going up on the site by the end of the week. The review of the Jungle Pyramid and some of the changes that have happened on it over this iteration. And I hope you've enjoyed this video and the new table format. I don't know if this is working out great. When I take a look at this, I'm probably going to post it anyway just because, you know, I can only shoot so many times. But I'm going to take a look at the lighting and see if that needs changing for the future. So if this lighting looks a little bit off, expect it to get improved in the next video. And hopefully I'll have a new video up sometime next week. I still have new pieces to release that I haven't even gotten a chance to photograph yet, so at minimum those are going to show up next week. And I've got a big project that I'm working on for a customer right now for a big board set in an Imperial sector, and I got some new ideas for that as well. So keep your eye out for that, because I think you're going to like that when that gets up. So I'll talk to you soon, and I hope you enjoyed it. Oh! Don't forget, of course, if you ever want to see pictures of this, you can always go to TerranScapes.com, and there's where you can see links to all of the new releases, pictures of all the pieces, up-close photos, videos, links to other videos there. Of course, all the videos are on YouTube, and also contact information there on the contact page on how to get a hold of me if you're interested or you have any questions about some of the things I've shown you. Thanks. I'll talk to you later.